everyone, welcome to the 12th episode of Sketch Support. I've got another free 2-page sketch, and this month I'm sharing 4 layouts that have all used that one sketch as the starting point. You can find the free sketch and many more sketches at scrapbookgeneration.com, and I will link to that down below in the video description. Since this is my 12th video, that means that this is my 1-year YouTube anniversary, and I wanted to give you something as a thank you. I very much appreciate your support, whether it's through comments, subscribing to my channel, buying sketches, or playing along in the challenges. I have always loved creating in some form for as long as I can remember. And when we started Scrapbook Generation, I very quickly learned that I also loved sharing my ideas, as crazy as those ideas may be sometimes. So YouTube has been a really great platform for that, and the experience so far has been great. You all have been so welcoming and leave the nicest comments. So as a thank you to all of you, I'm giving you a coupon code that is good for 30% off of all of my sketches, ebooks, and classes. This would be a great time to grab some of those bigger ebooks and classes, or just to stock up on some sketches. The Sketch Support Challenge and $20 giveaway this month will start today and run until February 28th. You can find all the details for the challenge in the video description down below and on my Facebook page. I'll also add a link to the 3-page PDF of 22 more sketch examples from the sketch in this video. It's a great visual for some of the variations you can make to this sketch to make it work for you and what you have on hand. So let's get this video started with a look at the sketch that I have used as the starting point for each layout that I have created. I've got to tell you guys, this sketch was a lot of fun to work with. In the middle area, there is a row of 3 4x4-inch photos with this large 12x12-inch circle design. And then off to the side, there are 3 6x4-inch photos. This is a design concept I like to create with a lot. I've talked about it before, I believe, in one of my videos. I like having one area that is really detailed, like this circle area, and then balancing that with something more simple, like the column of 6x4-inch photos. For the circle design, I have a mixture of 1-inch solid circles, rings, and then stitched circles with stars in the center. To the left of the circle design, there are a few vertical strips to help balance the layout. I like to have equal margins, or as close to equal as I can, so I added these strips to give me a similar margin to the edge of the layout like you see on the right side. At first glance, this might look like a complicated sketch to create with, but there are many ways you can simplify it or adapt it to fit your ideas, your style, and your theme. You can always use a full 12x12-inch paper, or use larger circles, or add more photos to that area, and that's just a few ideas. There are several examples for simplifying this sketch in the sketch examples PDF that I've linked to down below. My first layout shows how you can simplify this design with a single sheet of 12x12-inch paper. Although I did technically simplify the design, I did go in and add a lot of detail that I maybe wouldn't classify as simple. But the simplified concept is there, and I'll get to that in more detail in just a little bit. First, one of the biggest changes I made was flipping the sketch from left to right. My 3 6x4-inch photos have Drew pointing to the right, And generally, I don't like to position photos close to the edge with the subject facing towards that edge. This is the most common reason I will flip a sketch. It is the easiest solution to keeping your subject from directing attention off the layout. In the case of these photos, it probably would have been fine to keep the photos positioned as they are on the sketch, because even though Drew's body is pointing towards the right, his face and eyes are forward and not looking towards the right. But since flipping the sketch is so easy, I went ahead and placed those photos over here on the left just to avoid the situation all around. So now let's go back to the topic of simplifying the sketch. This is one of my all-time favorite pattern papers in the history of scrapbooking. It's from Pink Paisley, and I just love the colors and the wave design so much. I've really hoarded this paper. I had like 5 or 6 sheets, maybe more of it. You'll have to tell me in the comments if you've ever done that with a specific paper. Originally, I had planned on using wave strips in place of the circles, but when I was going through my papers, I came across this paper and decided it would be the perfect look for what I wanted to create. The paper would have been fine on its own, but I just can't help myself when it comes to stitching, so I decided to add lots of stitching accents to this paper. There are about 3 different shades of green and blue in the paper, so I used embroidery floss that would coordinate with those 3 colors. The hardest part when stitching designs like this that go across both pages at an angle is getting your thread to follow and stay at that angle. The thread won't hold at that angle. A little trick that I will do to ensure that the thread stays at that angle is I will pierce a tiny notch at the edge of the paper to help hold that thread in the correct position. To add even more detail, I used some Nuvo jewel drops in 2 of my favorite colors, Sea Breeze and Aqua Plains, and I used them to create little water droplets. These dry translucent and really look like actual water drops. To create the droplet effect, I use a needle and drag out the middle to create a point. You can see a tutorial on how to do this and more in my Nuvo drop video, and I'll link to that down below. The rest of the paper design follows the sketch almost exactly, with the exception of a wave border sticker I added on the right edge. Most of my photos follow the sketch, but I had 4 2x2 inch photos, and there is only one 2.5 by 2.5 inch photo on the sketch. I decided to place 2 of my 2.5 inch photos in place of that 2.5 inch photo on the sketch. Together they are larger than that one photo, but there's plenty of open space in this area, so I didn't have to make any grand adjustments for it to work. I still had 2 more 2x2 inch photos left, so I decided to use them with the embellishments that you see on the sketch. That's a great thing about 2-inch photos. They are small enough that you can easily mix them into embellishment clusters. My photos don't have a lot of color to them, so I added some colorful chipboard frames for a little pop of color to help bring attention to those areas. I also added some little wooden pieces and a lot of word stickers, and then these little gold hearts. With this layout, I swapped out the circles for stars and then included a lot more photos. I had this really cool star background cut file that I thought would be perfect for this sketch and these photos. Stars tend to be my go-to embellishment for boy-themed layouts. To give you a better idea of what I was working with, this is what the star background die cut looked like before I added all of the pattern papers. I had thought that by using this large die cut, I was kind of simplifying the design by decreasing the amount of time spent on this background. It's not as simple as a single sheet, but I thought it would be somewhere in the middle between the super detailed sketch and using a single sheet. But I was seriously shocked at how long it took to back each of these stars with pattern paper. It really took a lot longer than I was expecting. But I am very happy with the end result, and typically I don't really care how long it takes me to put together things like this. I really do enjoy the creative process, and it's just as rewarding to me as the actual documenting of the story and the photos. So I'm always okay with spending some extra time on details and designs. I added a pattern paper backing to each star frame, and then I also added a pattern paper star on top of each solid star on the die cut. Then I added some hand stitching to each star, matching my thread to the color of pattern paper. And this took some time as well. Stitching is time consuming on its own, but then if you are changing the colors and they are spread out in different areas, it takes even more time to change the thread and then stitch here and anchor and cut and stitch here and anchor and cut. And it really can turn out to be a lot of work. There's a lot of open spaces between the stars on the die cut piece, so I added a lot of punch stars to fill out the rest of the design. I added some of them with foam adhesive to add a little dimension throughout. For my photos, I ended up using photos that are all smaller than all of the photos on the sketch. This set of 11 photos were all printed in 3x5 inch. Originally, I had planned on using the full 3x5 inch photos here, but when I placed them over the star background, they covered up more of the star design than I wanted them to. Plus, these photos had like 3/4 of his body in them, so I could easily crop them down if I needed without losing anything important in the photos. So I made the choice to crop them down to 3x4 inch, allowing a little more of that star design to show. To accommodate the different sizes of photos, I shifted the whole design of the layout over 1 inch towards the left. I used 3-inch wide photos instead of the 4-inch wide photos that you see on the sketch, and I wanted that seam between the two photos to land on the seam between the two pages. So everything was moved 1 inch to the left. In place of the 6x4 inch photos, I cropped down my remaining 3x5 inch photos to 3x3 inch. In total width and height, they cover the exact same area as the 6x4 inch photos, so I didn't have to change anything to make it work in this space. Anytime you want to include more photos than what you see on a sketch, using slightly smaller photos is the way to go. You can change the width or height to squeeze in a few extras like I did here, or you can use 2 or more smaller photos in place of 1 larger photo like I did here. The 2 photo changes I made took this from a 7-photo sketch to an 11-photo layout without overcrowding or even changing the layout design. I was 1 photo short of completely filling this space, so I decided to move my journaling over here to fill that 3-inch space. I also removed the 2 vertical strips on the left page. By shifting the whole design over 1 inch, it gave me that layout balance without needing those strips, so I just left them off. For my embellishments, I swapped out the stars for different embellishments. Since this big area is made up of stars, I felt like star embellishments would have just blended in, and I wanted my embellishments to stand out and help create that visual triangle. I used word stickers, some heart stickers, and then these small stars. And I want to show you a little trick to really maxing out the usage of sticker sheets. I wanted to use the small black stars that came with this collection, but I had already used them on another layout. you can see on the sticker sheet how there is still a black outline left on the sticker sheet. So I used my scissors to cut out around the black outline, and then I used that piece as my sticker. This also works really well when you have a sticker sheet of alphabets and you are out of certain letters that you need. You can cut around the outline and use those instead. It can really give your title an interesting and eye-catching look when you mix letters with the letter outlines. For this layout, I really focused on that circle design and used it for my whole layout design by stretching it across both pages. With this set of photos, I had exactly what you see on the layout: a 6x4" photo, 4 3x4" photos, and 3 2x2" photos. It's kind of an odd combination of photos, but when I'm doing my bulk printing of photos, I sometimes have a layout design that pops in my mind for a specific set of photos, and so I'll crop them into a combination of sizes like you see here. I always think I'll remember the idea, but honestly, I never do. I tell myself in the moment that I should sketch the idea out and maybe write down some quick notes, and then I'll say, oh no, I'll remember. And yeah, no, I never remember. And honestly, that's fine for me because I typically take a make it work approach to everything, especially when I'm using sketches. Now, because I really liked these photos and I really liked the idea of focusing solely on the circle design, I decided to make it work. And that meant in order to accommodate both the design I wanted to focus on and the photo availability I had in my hand, I would have to remove those 3 6x4" photos on the right page. On the sketch, there are 3 4x4" photos within that circle design, and I ended up using 5 photos instead, stretching across both sides of the layout. Luckily, I had 5 photos that could equally balance on both pages. I have a 3x4" and a 6x4" photo on the left page that equals a 9" width. And then on the right page, I have 3 3x4" photos that also equal a 9" width. I arranged the photos in that same row across as you see on the sketch, and then extended the circle design to the edges of the photos. Again, like you see on the sketch. It's like I took that section and stretched it to accommodate more photos. To help my photos stand out, I added some white acrylic paint on the edges with a makeup sponge. This is one of my go-to techniques for snow-themed pages. Not only does it help my photos stand out, it gives kind of a snowy edge to the photos that kind of matches the theme. I really liked the idea of adapting those circles into a themed element to support my snow theme. It's fun to customize and create things like this to match your theme and give your layout an eye-catching element. I went with snowflakes for my layout, and you could really play around with this and customize it to virtually any theme you can think of. You could use things like hearts, basketballs, baseballs, or any other sports ball, Christmas trees or ornaments or presents, anchors, Easter eggs, spider webs or jack-o'-lanterns, pumpkins, leaves, cars, paw prints, letters, fireworks, flowers, or butterflies. Really, you could use anything that would support your theme. I had 2 different sizes of a snowflake punch that are the same design. I used the larger one as the base design. It's a little bit larger than the 1" circles on the sketch, so I have fewer rows of snowflakes, but design still follows the basic concept of that circle arrangement. To add some details to the snowflakes, I added a centerpiece to each one. I used a mixture of enamel dots, stickers, chipboard pieces, smaller punch snowflakes, jewels, and Nuvo drops. I also added some hand stitching to the red and blue snowflakes. Another extra I added is a large background piece behind the snowflakes. The layout felt a little plain to me with just the snowflakes. There's enough spacing between each snowflake that it really leaves a lot of openings throughout the design. And I had this really pretty wooden dotted paper that helped fill in that area while also allowing the snowflakes to stand out. Since I removed those 6x4-inch photos, I took away the placement for some embellishments. Plus, I had a few more small photos I wanted to include. With the title and photo on the top left edge of the row of photos, I thought adding the rest of the embellishments and photos on the bottom right edge of the row of photos, and that would be a good balance. I also moved my journaling to that area. With the snowflakes being bigger than the circles on the sketch, I tried not to cover them, or at least cover them as little as possible. Because of that, I decided to put my journaling on the bottom right edge of the photos. For the last layout, I always like to mix it up and create a layout that is a different size than the sketch. I always say that you should never let the size of the sketch determine the size of your layout. You can easily adapt any sketch to work with any size of layout. You can go from 1 page to 2 page or 2 page to 1 page, or adapt them to fit many albums or even 8.5 by 11-inch layouts. You can always adapt, shrink, expand, stretch, adjust, or move things to make it work. With my 1-page layout, I focused on using that circle design as my inspiration. I created a grid of 16 2-inch circles to recreate that circle design. I used a 6x6-inch paper pad for all of the circles. Anytime I know I'm going to be using or punching smaller pieces, I like to browse through my 6x6-inch paper pads first. Just like the papers being a smaller size, the prints on the papers are smaller too, so they work perfectly with smaller punched pieces. When I was searching through my photo stash, selecting photos to use with this sketch, I came across this set of photos of Drew peeking through the hole on the side of a slide, and I instantly knew I had to use them with this sketch because I love taking elements in the photos, like this circle that he is peeking out of, and using a design that matches it, like the circles on the sketch do. Right away, I envisioned punching the photos into circles and using them as part of the circle design. I used a 1 3/4 inch punch on the photos and a 2-inch punch for the photo mat. When punching out photos, or if you want to punch out a specific section of pattern paper, it helps to turn the punch upside down so you can see exactly what you are punching out. I opted to skip the 3 star groupings of embellishments that you see on the sketch. I just didn't really feel like it fit as well into this design. Instead, I added small embellishments to each circle. I used some wooden hearts, a wooden camera, and some gold hearts along with a few word stickers. Then I added a stitched border around each circle. With my title and journaling, because I didn't use the photos you see on the sketch, it left me with open possibilities on where I placed those pieces. I decided to add my title to the bottom right corner, and then my journaling is on a small tag that's kind of on this left edge of the design. I also added 2 extra background pieces behind the circles along with a stitched border. I couldn't decide which paper to use as a base for the layout between this grid paper and the word search paper. I thought that the best compromise was to just go ahead and use them both. One to use as the base and then one to use as a background behind the circles. I also added a small tan mat to the grid paper just to add a little bit of color around that white paper. That's all for this round of Sketch Support. Don't forget to grab that coupon code for 30% off of all sketches, ebooks, and classes. And I really hope to see your layout in the Sketch Support Challenge. I love getting to see those every month. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.